Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the new moon in Leo taking place for twin flames on, well, for everyone, but this is the twin flame update taking place on August 16th at 5:37 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. Couple of announcements, well, three technically. Before we dive in, number one, I'm going to open up astrological private mentorship. So the ability to receive a certification from me, get mentored as an astrologer by me coming up pretty soon here. I'm going to host a focus group about what that could look like. So you can share your thoughts and opinions with me about the structure and format of that on August 15th from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. To receive an invite to the focus group, you must be on the private list. The link to join the private list is below. And once the focus group is complete, if you didn't want to be on the private list, that's totally okay. I'll be placing a survey here on the YouTube channel for people who would like to share their opinions and thoughts about astrological mentorship with me. You can do so via the survey. Normally, here's announcement number two, at this time of year, I offer a group coaching program that's 4 weeks long called Q&A with Kay. And it's just an opportunity to chit chat spiritual insights with me. I do a little bit of light teaching, maybe 30 minutes to an hour of light teaching. And then the floor is just open to ask me anything about spiritual topics, light work or twin flame related in a private group setting. And historically in 2020, let's see, the theme for it was Taming the Runner in You. In 2021, I covered the 7 divine mirrors for twin flames and how to use them. And in 2022, I took a deep dive on union energy and preparing for union energy and how to harness union energy in your own life and in your connection. I'd love your thoughts on this year's theme over in the community section. There's a post specifically requesting thoughts and opinions about this year's theme. Please don't email me. The best place to put it is over in the community section because I'm monitoring those very carefully and in conversation with folks about it there. And if you see anything thematically that you like that people have already mentioned, definitely give it a thumbs up. It's kind of like voting. It lets me know what people are interested in, and I'd love your thoughts. And if you're new here, welcome. At the end of the Lightworker Energy Update, which is the video posted alongside this one, I do something called First Look, where I take a look at not just this lunation, but then I look at the lunation coming up 2 weeks from now, which will be the new moon in Pisces, and give you an opportunity to get ahead and understand what that energy is going to look like so you can prepare for it now. Let's get into this new moon in Leo for what this particular new moon is going to mean for the Divine Counterpart Collective. This new moon in Leo is taking place here at the 23rd degree of Leo. Where's my annotation tool? 23rd degree of Leo, and is sitting conjunct to Venus, who is in retrograde, and Lilith. Big love themes going on here, guys, as Venus specifically deals with love. Absolutely. Also money. I go in depth, deep dive in this particular Venus retrograde and the love themes affiliated with it inside of the Lightworker Energy Update. So if you're looking for that, you want to listen there. Just going to give some highlights about the divine counterparts here. But if you are specifically in a connection and you want to understand why and how that connection is playing out the way that it is during this Venus retrograde, have a listen to that and come back to this. There are some really big self-love themes here with Venus inside of Leo, the sign that deals with self-sovereignty, with major applications for relationship situations. And there are changes at this new moon in our relationship circumstances and status as a result of that, and Uranus's influence on the new moon. There's some new cycles opening up. as relationship statuses are changing. And because Venus is square this particular Uranus placement and conjunct the new moon, there's not only new cycles, but new energies opening up as well. Okay. And this will pertain in part to divine connections, because this connotes a change in dynamics where both counterparts may need to be even more self-focused, whether they identify in some format of separation or some format of union. This particular energy is drawing both counterparts into a more individual sense of mission and purpose. And that may really impact the way the pair connect or bond, and it may even change the structure of the connection in some way. If there are structural changes, they do look temporary because of the Venus retrograde. But the main thing is to pay attention to what need the change may be satisfying, especially if it seems to come out of nowhere or is unexpected or isn't like the person has presented themselves in the past. There may be a part of themselves previously unknown to you or unforeseen coming up to the surface to get its needs met. Okay. And so, a good example of this, I was doing some work in the personal development school for myself. This is kind of, I've talked about this on the channel before, but I grew up in a household where there was infidelity. And my father cheated on my mom for a long time in their marriage, different people, maybe the same person. I don't know all the details of that, but they figured out how to get to the other side of that and are still married and, running around being happy together in their retirement years, living their best life at this point. But it was a work in progress for them. And as a child in that circumstance, I mean, kids aren't stupid. I figured it out when I was 9. So, if this is a circumstance in your world and you're the adult in the circumstance, I encourage and urge you to find a way to get to congruency so that your kids don't have to feel into that and have to deal with that. But as a child, becoming an adult, dating was a minefield for me. Relationships were a train wreck for me because that specter that I could get cheated on was always in the back of my mind, because that was my template. That was my set point as a jump off point as a young adult. And so I was working through some of this in PDS, and Thais Gibson was talking about this. And I bring this up because she was talking specifically about couples and recovering from betrayal trauma, recovering from infidelity. And in this energy, this is an energy where that can definitely come up, where people are really, they may have been together, but then they're really just starting to do their own thing and it's coming out of nowhere. And you're like, wait, what? This isn't who we are, how we were. She talked about, yes, making amends, yes, hearing each other out, yes, being willing to witness the pain for the person who got cheated on. But then in the final piece of the making amends and restoring connection, she talks about the necessity and importance of the person who actually does the cheating, who's got the brand new behavior, needing to speak to what was at the root of it to begin with, and the person who got cheated on needing to have to hear and witness that. What was the need that was going unmet? Now, that's not to blame the person who got cheated on, because there really could be circumstances in which the person who did the quote unquote cheating didn't know their need and therefore couldn't express it, didn't have language or verbalization around it. There can also be circumstances where the need is truly known and the partner opts out of meeting it, doesn't want to be that way with their spouse. And then that's where the person seeks an outlet for that need. And so in the process of healing, Thais talks about both partners needing to have very honest conversations about needs getting met so that they can have a very honest conversation with one another about, can the relationship, can both of us do that for one another So in a way that then allows us to move forward from this point together. So it's tough conversations all around, but I bring it up to say infidelity may not be the issue here. It may be something like, but we always go to the park on Saturday mornings and walk the dog and do coffee. And now all of a sudden your partner is like, I need to go to, I don't know, painting classes on Saturday mornings. And no, I don't want you to come. Right? It could be something as simple as that, right? And you may be taking it very personally because this new moon and Venus are having a conversation here with Chiron, wounds, and Eris being rejected. And that may be a circumstance that you and your person are going to need to talk out. Okay. What are the needs? Because the moon deals with needs, and specifically in Leo, we're dealing with very personal needs. This may be a moment in time where your connection really requires you to have a look at what is the truth of our needs and how do we get them met together. Okay. So, like I said, infidelity may not be the issue, but that's, the example that is most extreme in its like dichotomies to help you understand the way this new moon in Leo can dredge up needs that were previously unknown, have people just suddenly start meeting them, and then require some level of dialogue between two counterparts to facilitate connection while getting the needs met in a very personal or individual way. Because Aries, where Eris and Chiron are sitting, is a sign of the individual, and Leo, where the new moon is taking place, and Lilith, who likes things her way, is going down. And we've got Venus, who's in retrograde, having us focus on ourselves in Leo, sign of self-sovereignty. It's a very individual focused kind of new moon. Okay, focusing on one's own path. Now, in this energy, it's going to be really important to pause as we may see people take actions that we don't understand. It's important to not presume to know and to attend to our feelings, yes, and also in connection, attend to the other person with curiosity, with I'm curious what this need, what need is this satisfying for you? And really let it come from a place of genuine inquiry as opposed to from a place of, you need to give me an explanation that will justify the pain I'm in from you doing something different from our normal routine and or disappointing me or letting me down or not meeting my expectations. That's not curiosity, which I know, but in the heat of the moment, it can be hard. So this is your friendly reminder. And granted, you may need some time before you're able to do that, especially if anything that comes up happens to be shocking or left field. And with Uranus in play, speaking to Venus, which is glue in our relationships, and Lilith and the new moon, it's almost guaranteed something left field will probably come up. Like, how did you just leave the house without a car and you just came back with a Mercedes? Like, help me understand how that happened with our money. Like, what happened when you were out? Like, walk me through it. So, the Mercury retrograde will really help us when it comes to being able to talk through anything that comes up now. And let me give you, I have the dates sitting by for the Mercury retrograde. So let me give you those and take advantage of that now. Now is a great time to have those conversations before Mercury gets fully in retrograde, because once Mercury is in retrograde, it might get a little difficult. Because Mercury has some aspects of tension with Neptune, which doesn't always have the most. Neptune's not the most straightforward energy. There can be information withheld or unclear with a Mercury retrograde. I had those dates. Let me give it to you here. August 23rd through September 14th. Not going to be the clearest time, but it'll still be a good time to talk. If you can talk now, that's going to be a lot better than then. Okay. More specifically, let's get into the divine feminine energetic field. So Juno, the wife of Jupiter on Mount Olympus, represents our divine feminine energy. And she's emerging from a transit through very emotional sign Cancer, and she's now in Leo. And this emergence has her releasing a very emotionally transformative process, which, she still may be undergoing in some ways. Our energetic fields may have something that's deeply emotional and also like highly charged and potent and ready to charge forward. It's the energy of this new moon in Leo. It's like super Joan of Arc in certain ways. And we'll get to that towards the end of the video. Hopefully I remember, but there's that kind of like cry at the drop of a hat, super emotional, but let's charge forward and take a stand for things at the same time. Okay. And that's when you combine the Juno and the Jupiter energy. It's very Joan of Arc. But this Juno, if we just take it in chunks, we deal with the divine feminine energetic field. There's a transformative process she's undergoing, may still be in for some of us, that may be a little emotional because she's still speaking to Uranus loosely, but conversation is still there. That's a square. That's an aspect of tension. So there's a demand for transportation. It's funny I said transportation. I was going to say transformation and quantum leaps forward, but some of you may actually need to relocate yourselves in order to do that. And there's a reconstruction going on as she's speaking to Neptune in harmony, and Neptune wants to dissolve some of the baggage from the past, closing out a cycle. And she's speaking to Pluto in opposition, which is trying to help her resurrect at this point, because she's on the other side of that direct opposition. So she's gone through the death process, Pluto, the integration process, Pluto, and now she's in the resurrection part of the process, Pluto. Pluto governs that cycle of alchemy, caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly, death, afterlife, rebirth. That's the Plutonian process. So there's a rebirth in the energy here. And, there's a little bit of a like, okay, a reconstruction of the divine feminine energetic fields. The way this is presented in my clairvoyance is like actual pieces of the grid, like falling off and new pieces being built out in really new ways out of like new materials almost, and not in the same even dimension or format that the grid was previously in formation. It looks very different as I look at it. And so all of us have this energy. Many of you know I don't read people as divine masculine or divine feminine. I read energy as divine masculine or divine feminine. And in this way, there are seasons and times where you could be exploring either polarity. You could, not based on gender, be embodying divine masculine or divine feminine polaric energy as your lessons or leadership require of you. I make no pronouncements on the link between your gender identity and these energies, but I do believe this. If you want to find yourself consistently in some format of physical union on the outside with a counterpart, you will have to, at some point, recognize yourself as both energies on the inside, divine masculine and divine feminine, runner and chaser, wholeness within, wholeness without, and make peace. Even embrace your personal cocktail of these binaries and your capacity to move along the scale in a non-binary and more fluid way as your lessons or leadership require of you as a divine creator being incarnate. I've said it many times before, but I'll say it again for anyone who's new to the channel. As you're listening, the invitation is to expand your consciousness from I'm divine masculine and they're divine feminine to I'm all the things. How does this apply? How does that apply? Okay, so in our feminine energetic fields, our receptive, nurturing, flexible energy is shifting into communication now in this with the Venus retrograde. Venus is moving toward her and she's moving toward Venus and in the sign of self-sovereignty. And so there's this energy here of really taking the reins of like self-possession, standing in true power, owning who we are, being unapologetic about that, letting go of people who need us to change in order to stay connected to them, being with people who like us as is and saying, great, because I didn't want to change anyway. There's a little bit of real encounter with certain parts of us that, yes, are changing, and then other parts of us that are like essential, the parts of us that are non-transforming, that are technically fixed because we have so much energy in fixed signs. Now, this isn't an excuse for parts of us that we really do need to grow. Now, come on, y'all know there are some parts of us that probably need some cultivation and growth. That's why we're here on Earth School. And simultaneously, there are also parts of us where, some core essential pieces that the divine placed in us itself that are going to stay no matter what. And those are the parts we can embrace at this time. Okay. And so I want to challenge anyone who's looking at an exit or a departure from a connection or connections, because I'm seeing a lot of departures in this energy in my private readings with folks, especially as Pluto is wrapping up its transit in Capricorn and moving into Aquarius, the sign of communities. The very communities you're a part of are probably shifting and changing. The people who you count as friends or your inner circle or soul family. I've been seeing a lot of this as I look clairvoyantly as well, that there's a lot of like breakdown of initial monad structure and reconfiguration of soul family for people at this time, as people are just getting chessboarded across the game board of life. This in the divine feminine energetic fields, this breakdown of spiritual structure that we've known up until this point is helping us move into where we're meant to be stationed next in terms of our light work and our leadership. Okay. Now, as this stuff is breaking down, it's important to understand that it's with purpose. It's not an accident that these people are exiting, that certain structures are departing, that we're leaving certain kind of soul family structures behind and moving into new structures. They're not doing anything wrong, and neither are you. So as we move into these departures, it's important to remember that there are ways to exit without, slamming the door shut and storming off. There are ways to cross bridges without burning them. There are ways to be powerful without rendering somebody else powerless. And there are ways to release painful connections because we've outgrown them. When you've outgrown something, it becomes painful to stay in it. There are ways to release it without insisting that other people experience pain too. Okay. And especially when source is what's sourcing you and you are connecting to all you are through all that is, it's much easier to release and love when you recognize that about yourself. Okay. And so as Juno joins Venus here in Leo, and at the very end of the Venus retrograde period, they will be standing together. As the last day of Venus retrograde, those two stand together, and that really pours a lot of magnetism into the divine feminine energetic fields and calls forward the next chapter of people and community and connection and soul family toward the divine feminine energetic. Okay. So this is an opportunity, as you're moving through this, to bless and release. Let go with love, right? And especially as we get into the Mercury retrograde and she nears a trine with Chiron, because she will at that time. She'll then start speaking to Chiron. And that's woundedness and wisdom all balled up into one. It'll be really important to remember that you're much stronger than you know, and things don't have to be messy for you to let go. You can just let go if you've outgrown it. Okay. And just because someone else is maybe in pain or their immaturity may cause them to insult your pride, that doesn't mean that we need to stoop to their level and undermine our honor or insult ourselves with pettiness or tit for tatness or games. Okay. And this goes for work, it goes for home interactions and affairs, it goes for neighbors or, work relationship, all of it. All of these are up for dynamic change in our divine feminine energetic fields, where there is definitely a letting go. There's a rebirth into an embracing at this time. But there's been a dragging on of holding on this particular new moon in Leo. And as we move into Virgo season, there's an invitation to let go and love. Okay. And just invest in yourself as much as you can and you need to. Okay. And I stress this the way I stress it because Lilith likes to have things her way. Chiron can wallow in his woundedness for way too long and self-victimize in that, and that's in shadow. And Eris here loves to tell the story about how rejected she's been. And when you put all these together in a singular conversation, which they are in now, they can bring the worst out of each other. There can be some real pettiness in this energy. And this is your warning to just skip that part and move into like, okay, you know what? I'm the one in pain here. I'm going to go over here and deal with my pain. Nope, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to say anything. Nope, you can't help me with it. It's mine. I'm going to go over here. Boundaries. You stay over there. I'll be over here dealing with my stuff. And when I am ready to ask you about your part in it or talk to you about, I'll be back. I'll talk to you about it then. We can have a conversation once I'm, in a place to have a stable, mature conversation with you. Okay. So, there's that. Now, if you need help with this, you know where to find me. I'm over at kmoonastro.com. Link is below this video, especially if things just feel so up in the air. You're not really sure which doors are open and which doors are closing. Your chart actually does lay this out for you. If it's a work thing, if it's a family or relocation thing, it won't tell you where to move to specifically, but it does lay out for you what where the direction of growth is. So we can talk about that if you want to book some time before we get into Mercury retrograde on August 23rd. That's when things get even more confusing. So now's the time to go ahead and book. Now let's look at Jupiter, her husband on Mount Olympus, hanging out here in Taurus. That's our divine masculine energy at the 14th degree of Taurus. Jupiter is square Venus at this time. Trine Mercury. So it's a harmonious aspect to Mercury, and that Mercury is speaking to Mars. Both of those are in Virgo. And Pallas is there as well. So there's a little bit of self-protective kind of energy. There's a sextile to Nessus here in Pisces. So that's adding a little bit of obsession and OCD-ness to things and making sure we want to get things right. Also got a square to Chariklo here in Aquarius. My. So there can be this sense of like ready to move, ready to act, because Jupiter brings opportunity and expansion to whatever he's touching. Whenever Jupiter gets into contact with Mars, Mars is movement and action. And so Jupiter is just expanding and Mars is feeding Jupiter with, yes, opportunity, let's act. Opportunity, let's act. Action, then there's more opportunity. And Mercury here is bringing a lot of ideas forward in that. This was a very fortune favors the bold kind of energy, a very closed mouths don't get fed kind of energy. So there's a lot of activity in our divine masculine energetic field, while lots of internal work in our divine feminine energy fields. This is a movement. This is optimism. This is let's go type of energy. And in an area of life, you may already be feeling this a bit strategic and methodical, step by step, a lot of action planning kind of energy. There's still this odd 1 foot on the brake, 1 foot on the gas to it, as the sign that Jupiter is in, which is Taurus, is governed by Venus, and Venus is moving backwards. So the momentum may be a little bit stalled. Nevertheless, there can be quite a bit of energy that feels a little bit like runners take your mark, runners get set, and everyone's on the line just waiting for the official to say go. Okay. When Venus goes direct, which is coming up rather soon here. So keep working the planning and the strategy, and know that you may even be inclined to try a few new things during this period. It'll be full implementation time once we get to Venus stationing direct, and that'll be September 3rd. So that's very, very close here. Okay. Now, if, like I said, if you need some help with this, you can always find me over at K-Moon Astro, and we can look at which doors are open and what to work on. For counterparts, identifying in some format of separation, this is where you're going to find yourselves really pulling in separate or new directions from one another for now, really focused and very personal things for your own growth and development. And really investing in yourselves. And you, again, with the pettiness, just as a small warning, you may find yourself slightly annoyed that maybe you had asked your partner for a long time to do certain things. And now that you two are pulling in separate directions, now they want to do it. Just bless and release if you are identifying yourself in some sort of separation. For those identifying yourself in some format of union, you'll find one another taking on deeper levels of personal fulfillment. So things you've hoped the other person would do for themselves for years. You may finally see that happening now. Like you've been waiting on them to go to the doctor because you know they need to. They know they need to. And finally, they make that appointment. They may finally start the business that they've always wanted to. They've been talking about for years. They just dive in. This is the kind of moment when those changes can come about almost like boom, out of nowhere, because this Venus is very much invested in like self-growth in the sign of self-sovereignty, speaking to Jupiter in our divine masculine energy fields. Jupiter is in the sign of self-worth and self-esteem. That's Taurus. And so this is a very self-love kind of energy, like, I love you, babe, but I got to put my own oxygen mask on first here. And so this is the moment to really acknowledge that, where you're seeing that growth in the other person, to really cheer them on. You likely know, you want to acknowledge it. You want to be kind. You want to cheer them on, give them their flowers, like in real time, like big up them for whatever they're taking on that seems like, wow, like I knew they had it in them to do this, and here they go. You know how your person likes to be acknowledged or not. Some people, they don't appreciate a big deal being made of things, and that's fine if they don't want that. But this is that moment where you may see it, or you may hear about it down the road and then track it back to this new moon in Leo, where it's like, oh, you started that at that new moon in Leo. I remember that. Good job. All right. So Yeah, all of that. And you want to do that for yourself as well. So exciting times. Pat yourselves on the back. You're all doing very good. I'm very excited for all of your changes and all of your newness. Drop the video a like and subscribe if you're new, if you heard something that resonated for you. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been here with me and everyone who's new here with me. I have noticed that I have some of the kindest subscribers on the internet. You guys cheer each other on, you support one another in really beautiful ways. You're kind to one another, you're kind to me. You keep the keyboard coaching and, self-promotion to a minimum and not at all on my channel, and I really appreciate that you guys are so thoughtful to one another and letting people just have their process. And yeah, it's a treat to do this with you. I'll see you guys at the full moon in Pisces. Take great care and bye for now.